So, people have been talking about Bolivia again because of Blinken's comments. And I'm hyped because I wanted to talk about it. Everybody talks about the coup in Bolivia, but a lot of people don't really talk about why, other than it's what the US always does, which is true. But there's an interesting angle here. I've got a bunch of notes. Just go through it real quick. So first off, the coup was orchestrated by the OAS, which is the Organization of American States, which is a U.S. neo-colonial project. Let me convince you that the OAS is a U.S. neo-colonial project. It was formed in 1948 to be a bulwark against the spread of communism, but so was, God and Japan. The reason we kept Japan around was because
they were staunchly anti-communist.
They're headquartered in D.C. In 2019, out of an $83 million general budget, $51 million came from the U.S., which is about 60%, and $18 million went to their specific budget, which was about 40%. And this information is from the Council on Foreign Relations. So here's some of the things that the OAS has done. They present themselves as like this defender of democracy in the Americas, but they're very pick and choose, and I'll show you what they be picking and choosing. First off, they kicked out Cuba when Castro announced the socialist character of the revolution, which was after the Bay of Pigs. They said, we cannot allow a Marxist-Leninist group in the thing. Little side point, Castro was so lit. They did support Zelaya after Hillary's 2009 coup in Honduras, which is sort of nice, but they were also all in for Juan Guaido in Venezuela in 2019, which is very not nice. It says in their charter that they are there to strengthen democracy, but they allowed and recognized the US-backed anti-communist dictatorships in Chile, Argentina, Guatemala, Bolivia, this time in the 70s, Nicaragua, Haiti twice pre or during Cold War, and again in 2004, Panama twice, Brazil, and El Salvador, and did nothing as Operation Condor was conducted to murder left-wing people across South America, including 300,000 Argentinians and 2,000 Paraguayans. And that's just what we know about. Back in Honduras, they said nothing when Juan Orlando Hernandez won the Honduras elections, in 2013, which was internationally disputed as fraught with irregularities, to say nothing of the fact that there were 24 armed attacks and 36 murders of opposition candidates and their families. In fact, even worse than saying nothing, they did say that the elections met international standards and were free and fair. The result was appealed, but look at that. Hernandez had replaced 5 members of the Supreme Court and appointed a new Attorney General a month before the election. And they rejected the appeal. Sounds fair. Same thing happened in 2017, and Hernandez was again quickly recognized by the OAS and the US. They also said nothing when Rousseff was impeached in Brazil in the technocratic coup in 2016, by which I mean that they actually ruled that the rules were constitutional and strictly observed, and they let Lula be isolated in prison for that bullshit while Bolsonaro won the presidency. Again, won. Basically, They're sus, and you can look into it. If there was actually any care or concern for democracy, they would have stepped up for all of these things rather than just being like, Castro's a bad guy. Oh, we don't like Maduro. What happened in Bolivia is the OAS dropped a preliminary report saying Evo's election was fraudulent, like they care now. And immediately, the military and police coordinated to force him out. Instead of his VP, who should have taken power, the second vice president of the Senate, Áñez, who has said things like, Indians belong in the highlands and the lowlands, not the presidential palace, takes power without legal confirmation from a quorum, hoists a giant Bible and says, finally the Bible is back in the presidential palace. She said things like Indians are satanic and all types of foul things, especially in a country where 41% of the population is indigenous. And so is Evo. He's the first indigenous president of Bolivia. Also, Elizabeth Warren wouldn't call it a coup. Sorry to bring it up. But you know who did? This guy. That's fucking right. So, finally, after all of this time, there's another election. The Movement for Socialism, which is Evo's party, wins the presidency. But there's a lock in the houses, in the lower houses. But anyway, they're back in power. And so what do? They arrest Áñez for orchestrating a terrible coup, which murdered protesters, 36 protesters, and passed a law saying that it was totally cool for police to murder protesters. All types of foul things, like tortured opposition candidates. And then the Secretary of State of the United States for the Joe Biden administration, Anthony Blinken, decided it was time to step in and speak up. He called the arrest of Áñez anti-democratic. Gee willikers, Tony. Where were you this whole time? This is anti-democratic? She committed crimes. She committed awful crimes. If people don't get locked up for that, why do you even lock people up? So, why does anyone care? Why would the U.S. Secretary of State decide to make a comment about how anti-democratic Bolivia is being by locking up the woman who literally overthrew the democratic will of the people? Well, there's one thing that I have heard a bunch of people talk about, which is the IMF loan. Under Áñez's government, Bolivia took out a $350 million IMF loan that they in no way could pay back, which is a different sort of neo-colonial project to the OAS. Think China and Africa, and China and Southeast Asia, and China and Southwest Asia, and China and Southern Europe. We'll talk about that shit another time. It's a dead trap. So in February, the new Movement for Socialism government returned the IMF loan, all $350 million plus interest. That's not easy for them. Bolivia's going through a rough time right now, especially with the pandemic, and they were already pretty poor to begin with. Chile, why you had to fuck them out of the coastline like that? That was a dick move. Chile and Croatia are the worst fucking coastline snatchers out here. We see you. The evidence is right there. Anyway. So what is my point that people are missing? Lithium. Lithium. It's big. It's in phones. It's in cars now. It's in Teslas. Tesla's building batteries. Nancy Pelosi just bought a shitload of Tesla. It's a big deal. Bolivia has the second largest supply of lithium on Earth. Chile has the first largest, but Chile is already controlled by a center-right party, which has ties to the escaped Nazi organization that did the dirt under Pinochet, which is foul, but also their president, I found out in researching for this, Sebastian Piñera, is distantly related to the last Incan emperor. Very cool. But bad. He's bad. But very cool still. So, Chile is locked up. Argentina is locked up. What's Bolivia doing with 25% of the lithium resources in the world that are now super valuable? Bolivia, under Evo Morales, decided all lithium mining was going to be handled by YLB, which is a state-owned mining enterprise. He wanted to produce the batteries in Bolivia instead of letting a foreign U.S. company come in, extract it, and a different U.S. corp build the batteries for U.S. markets, paying Bolivia only a fraction of what it's worth to extract it from their land. Instead of doing that, he wanted to take it out of the ground himself, well, themselves, make the batteries and sell it for a profit the way actual industrialized nations do. And the business community hates him for it. They hate him for it. You can find a million articles about how terrible a job he's done with lithium and how foolish he's been trying to inspire people to make batteries. I found an article on mining.com, which has a bunch of, tracking gold, silver, different things that you mine as investments. It says, the Bolivian government has never adapted best practice lithium source development structures and strategies, and they should. Companies around the world are spending millions of dollars on R&D for single steps in supply chains, while YLB is not sufficiently financed or experienced to perform any of them effectively. In other words, YLB has been spread too thin and tasked to develop too many complex projects simultaneously. In addition to the correct leadership, a communication strategy that undoes the damage of creating a national pride and psyche around this idea that Bolivia will make entire batteries and electric vehicles instantly is needed. The former president, Evo Morales, created national identity around something that is technically unfeasible. Why? Because it's hard? Yeah, it's hard. But they're a country. They've got the resources. This is the way out. You can't just be a Tuvalu and let people suck you dry and have nothing to show for it. And of course, they praise the governments of Argentina and Chile for letting Western corporations come in and extract their lithium when they need it. So anyway, I'm not super moral. I kick myself for this all the time. When I was hearing about the coup, I was trading stocks on my phone. I looked at Tesla, I was like, holy shit, I bet Tesla's gonna go up. Fuck me, did it go up. Oh my goodness. And that tells you shit more than anything anybody in the government or media ever would. Look what happened. This is Tesla's stock price in November 2019 when it happened, and look what it's been doing ever since. Once you let the world know that the US government will overthrow a democratically elected government to secure the resources that you need, your shares are as good as gold. Nancy Pelosi know that. That's all I wanted to say. There was this moment where I felt like Evo Morales, AMLO, Lula, Bernie, Corbin. Let's change the world. What a fool I was. What a fool I was. Disband the OAS. They don't do shit. Stop fucking around in Venezuela. Stop fucking around in Bolivia. Stop fucking around in Nicaragua. Stop fucking around in Haiti. Stop fucking around in the Dominican Republic. Stop fucking around in El Salvador. Stop fucking around in all of it. Stop fucking around in Brazil. Come on. Brazil is serious. Y'all can't treat them like that. Y'all can't treat anyone like that, but you know what I mean. Let Bolivia make the batteries. Tesla will still buy them. Bolivia will get a bigger percentage of the profits. Evo's a socialist, so it'll probably help people with the money, and I know y'all hate that, but just let it rock, because y'all get rich anyway. Agnes is a criminal. Doesn't matter how many US people supported her. Elizabeth Warren. You make me cry a tear. Vote for this guy in 2024. Because that's my mance. Anyway. The OAS was also the name of that French group that tried to overthrow the French government because they were going to let Algeria have independence. Algeria was bombing cafes and shit and being dope. And so the French were like, oh no, what shall we do? And wanted to give it up. And OAS was the Organisation Armed Services. And they came to invaded Corsica, tried to overthrow the French government because they were mad that France was letting go of their colonial possessions. France, let go of your fucking colonial possessions. The Central African Republic does not need you. Mali does not need you. Be out. Nobody wants your fucking West African franc. I was watching Vosh talk about it. He said, just be critical of news about Bolivia coming out in major American sources. And that's facts. You know, be suspicious if they call out the current regime for, abuses, business violations, corruption. That's what they did in Brazil. After they found a shitload of oil off the coast of Brazil. The game is so old and tired by this point. I'm surprised people are still playing, but everybody's still playing. Anyway, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by any of this shit.